The Raptors lost to the Bucks last night, 130-122, but it didn't fall short of any big performances from Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. Freddie with 39 points, Gary with 28 points. I'm Noor Zainab, but Jelani, Goodridge-Reid, and Justin Pooni. And today we'll talk about the game last night and what those performances meant for Freddie and Gary. Was it because of the pre-trade deadline, or do they really think they have a shot for the play-in? On top of that, over here, with the trade deadline approaching on February 9th, who would we rather keep, Gary or Freddie? And then to end everything off, there's some rumors around the league about Freddie not getting along with the rest of his teammates, and we'll talk about and speculate and maybe spread some more rumors here because we have no credible sources on that. But first, you guys, last night the Raptors lost. I just feel like it's like
again.
A recurring thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I get on here and just say they lost.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It is what it is. It is what it is. You know?
It's tough. But the Bucks were they were without Middleton, they were without Giannis, they just had Drew Holiday, but it was pretty much the Drew Holiday and Fred VanVleet show. The point guards going off against each other, and can I say the better point guard one?
Ooh.
Miss Raptors Twitter just said that.
I feel bad, but like it's a tough loss when you have a guy who scores 39 points and you still lose to the team that's missing two of their best players.
They're two best players.
Yeah,
they're
two
best
on
players.
national
Drew Holiday's
TV.
like
The best,
TNT.
and one of them is the best player in the world.
Yeah, on TNT.
Yes.
The effort wasn't really there to start the game. The Bucks had a hot start, and I think that really hurt the Raptors. The Bucks were shooting at a high clip, in the first half, and I think the Raptors they hung in there for a bit, and then at the end of things, like the Raptors to me, man, it's just not working. They cannot lose that game. You can't lose that game. No Middleton, no Giannis, and they're still shooting at a high clip. They're still doing things in the interior. You can't let that happen to you. Okay, especially when the Americans are watching us. Okay, they don't see us that much. No, and I know they didn't want to see Bucks Raptors again.
No,
I saw you tweet about that as well.
Yes.
But it was a pretty disappointing loss. I think you beat teams like the Hornets. Okay, back to back. Cool, great, fantastic. Doesn't really matter to me. I want to see how you're gonna play against the best of the best. And like we just said, without their all-stars, without the best player in the sport. I was pretty disappointed.
Again, we're gonna beat this drum until the whole world hears. There's levels to this in the game of basketball. The Milwaukee Bucks are here. The Toronto Raptors are here.
I put them right here.
No, maybe here, maybe even here, right?
With all
But
due respect.
they're missing Giannis. They're missing Chris Middleton, and you still gave up 130 points.
And Drew Holiday went off, right?
And Drew Holiday
and
went
he's
off.
more of a defensive guy.
Exactly.
Let's be real,
He's
right?
not an
So-
offensive juggernaut. Nobody's gonna confuse Drew
And
Holiday.
he's more of a playmaker than he is a shooter, so let him go off. And again, 130 points, it shows you there was barely
You
any
let
defense played by this
Brooke
team.
Lopez punk you too.
I know,
Gary
he took
Trent
off the
Jr. What are you
headband.
doing? Like, there's no.
No, that was Brooke Lopez. Let's not start
Yeah, but
that.
why
That
you
was
letting him punk you
completely
like that on
unwarranted.
national
What do
TV
you mean
in the
why you let him?
States?
You see OG try to fight him afterwards. It was all Brooke Lopez. He tried to initiate the whole contact with Gary Trent, and after that, OG had to come in. Pascal had to come in. Bobby Portis with his eyes bulging out of his skull.
They're
Thought he
always
wanted to get
bulging out
involved
of
the whole time. I mean, yeah, that's the whole joke, Justin. Thanks for getting on the joke. Thanks a lot.
But going back to the game, right? I was during the fourth quarter, the game was still kind of in the balance.
Yeah.
I'm watching some of the Raptors' offensive possessions. I'm thinking, me and my friends that played Wednesday night at elementary school gym could run better offense than that.
And me at LA Fitness.
It's actually it blows my mind sometimes when I watch this team on the offensive side of the ball that they can't play offense.
No, it's a lot of stagnant.
It's stagnant. It's
possessions.
there's no fluidity. There's no ball movement. It's just kind of, and they get stuck at the end of the shot clock and jack up at the shot that has
I've
no
been
chance
saying
of
this
going
for
in.
years. I've hated the fact that they let it go down. Each
They let
possession they let it go
yeah.
down on the 24.
And then-
I've been saying that for years about the Raptors.
It makes no sense to me. And then, again, I want to touch on Fred and Gary right now because they had really good games.
Yeah, combined what?
Look,
like almost 70 points.
Masai, Bobby, Nick,
7 points.
sell high. They're playing very well right now. Sell them
So you'd
for
say
a
they're
lot
playing
of
like
assets.
this right now for the trade
Oh, of
deadline
course, of
because
course.
they
They
want to
both
get their
know. They
value
see the
higher.
writing on the wall. They see all the athletic reports.
Well,
this
there are
report.
reports right now that obviously a bunch of teams could use a guy like Gary Trent. He's a sharpshooter. He can put him in the perimeter. He's going to go off. But then there's also the Magic and the Suns who have interest in Fred VanVleet if he becomes available. So out of those two guys, who would you rather keep for this Raptors team? Where do you think the future is?
Can we say neither? Is
Right.
Justin, please don't be a hater.
Okay, no, I'm not being a hater.
Explain,
Explain. Can I explain?
Explain.
Right? Look, you've seen what Gary can do. You've seen what Fred can do. They've both been here for a while now. right? You know what you have in them.
There's
Correct?
a ceiling.
There's a ceiling.
I always talk about ceiling.
And again, I know people think that it comes across as hating and stuff like that, but it's not. I genuinely want to see the Raptors compete for titles because that's good
Really?
for my business. That's good for my pockets. That's good for me putting myself out there so you can see me
I'm
more,
surprised
right?
you said that. I'm surprised.
like-
Right? That's good for me. If the Raptors do well, that's good for me, and it's good for you fans out there too. We're all on the same team right now.
Blood thinks he's on the team.
Exactly.
Yeah, who do you think you are?
Next, the reason the Raptors need to move both of them is because of the ceiling. They're not championship level players at the positions they're in on this team. On the hierarchy of the Toronto Raptors right now.
Not true because Freddie is a championship level. He's won it before.
But you missed
so
what I
it's
said.
about how
Hold
you're
on, you
using
missed
it.
what I said. You didn't listen to what I said.
Finish
I
it.
said the hierarchy of the team. Fred VanVleet cannot be your second best player on a championship team. He cannot. When they won the title in 2019, what was he? The fourth best player,
Yeah.
right? There's a pecking order.
Fifth,
Fifth,
yeah,
right?
'cause
But I think that also shows you that it comes down to the rules and stuff too, right? Like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
even on this team right now, is Freddie one of the best players? For sure. But there could still be a pecking order that could be randomized with Pascal running it first, then Scotty, then perhaps Freddie, right? But it's a matter of how much will you buy into that role. And I think when it comes to that, one of them can stay if they understand what their role on this team means. If Freddie's going to take the ball, chuck it up every 2 seconds, that means he's not getting what his position
What have we
means,
seen
right?
the last couple weeks from Fred VanVleet talking in the media? He wants to
Yeah,
be
he
the
wants to
guy
be,
of
yeah.
the team, right? Because he feels that this team is his
On-
team.
on the court,
and
I
quite
don't see
frankly,
it. I don't see it.
frankly, whether you want to say it or not,
But not in
the
the
Toronto
locker room
Raptors are Fred VanVleet's team.
Yeah, we
Pascal Siakam might be the best player, but it's Fred VanVleet's
That's
team.
why I would keep Fred in this
But
question.
I think if Fred VanVleet got traded to Phoenix, and that's a pretty smooth transition from Chris Paul to Fred VanVleet. Again, Chris Paul.
wouldn't.
Wait,
For
what are
me,
you
Hall of
talking about though? You just tried to do the same transition here with Lowry. Look at what's happening with us. You think it's going to be the same thing with Lowry
Because
and
you got
Freddie?
Devin-
They're not
you
the
got
same
Devin
kind of
Booker, though,
player.
in Phoenix,
Yeah,
you got
but
Devin
like,
Booker
okay,
in Mon-
Yeah, I would
I
just
just
I would
think you're
keep
using
Fred.
him wrong.
Look, I
keep Fred.
understand.
I keep Fred.
I
Because
think
Gary's
What
gonna
about
leave
you?
anyway.
Why would you keep Fred? Yeah, because
Gary's
Gary.
gonna leave anyway, and plus on court he's too inconsistent, even more than Fred. Okay, look, the Fred
and
shooting
it
this
sounds
year
like
hasn't been good. We
He's
know this.
demanding more than $25 million as
So
well.
I'd rather keep Fred, a guy who I know is all-star caliber. He has that ceiling, he has that potential, and he's the backbone of our team. So that's why I'd rather keep him. But yeah, to me, I think that the writing is on the wall. I said this last episode. Gary's gonna go somewhere, right? We see the Pelicans might want his services. Even for Fred, though, outside of those two teams, Orlando and Phoenix, I'd also look at Minnesota. I think Minnesota could be a player for that. So watch out for
Absolutely.
that.
I think for me, if the Raptors can somehow convince him that his position is shooting guard and you bring in actual playmaking, you bring in a center, then you can keep Freddie on this roster because it doesn't have to be, as long as he realizes that he can't be that guy on a team, you just buy into a role. And I think that was the problem with Vision 6-9, positionless basketball, because it blurred the lines for everybody. No one knew what their roles were and nobody knew who the actual person, like who should have the ball in their hands. And yeah, you wanted to make Freddie your Lowry, and as great as of a player Freddie is, I just think his winning contributions come from him being on the perimeter, not with him having the ball. Him catching the ball when he's open, shooting it. That's kind of where I think he does well, and that's exactly when he won the championship here. That too, right? So he is that caliber of a player.
that year, right?
But look at him against the Bucks. Like his entire series against the Bucks, we won. We didn't win it because of him, but he was a big contribution
That's the
to the
first, that's the
entire
first we've
series.
been wanting this.
Exactly.
That's the first that commands the money
No.
that he's wanting. You know what I
But
mean?
I think when we're gonna talk about his teammates actually like him. But I think Fred VanVleet has a massive chip on his shoulder, and he's been very public about that. He has a massive chip on his shoulder, and he has a chip on his shoulder on this team because he knows that he saw what happened last year when he was the focal point of the team. It was his team. He had the ball. He was the primary decision maker, right? They made the playoffs, and he sees the ball taken away from him now, and he sees that he's given more of a secondary role. The team's losing, and he's probably thinking, as anybody would think, right?
It's also, yeah, definitely. I think it does come down to your, I guess, your demeanor about it as well, right? Off the court in the locker room, and at the beginning of the season, we heard about Freddie saying that some comments about the young guys and not being able to trust them, and they have to play harder. We know in the past he's had problems with Kawhi. Again, nothing came to surface, but it was just speculation in those times. So it's the matter of like, does he have the locker room? Like, does
The
Freddie
locker room's
have the
different
locker
than
room?
before.
I
This
just
is because
think-
when we
yeah.
won the championship and stuff, even before then, I
there
think
was so much-
there was more like more togetherness,
Yeah.
right? On and off the floor. Right now, I'm not seeing it. And that's also, we've been talking about it, right?
The
That's
one-
why it trickles down the court.
Yeah.
It goes to the court, and that's why we're not playing good basketball.
We're the new Brooklyn Nets right now.
No, I don't know about that.
There's a
That's
Chill
kinda
out,
that's
chill
kinda
out.
extreme.
Obviously
Yeah,
not
that's
that
a
way.
bit
Okay,
much.
not that way, but like the locker room
But
stuff
no, like I'm
trickling
saying,
on the
like,
court.
and I think the other issue is you're seeing the cornerstones, right? Mixture, you mix the cornerstones with the younger dudes coming up. I think there's a bit of an issue there as well because Scotty, we understand he's next in line. We're trying to, figure that out right now. Then when you talk about off the court, all the news and stuff, okay, is Pascal gonna get traded? Is OG gonna is Fred? Go down the list, right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole issue there. It's just been a weird year. But yeah, I think when you're talking about the Raptors, a major, contributor in terms of the issues that we're seeing is definitely because of the locker room, because it's not the same as before.
I will say this, like you mentioned 2019, but the thing was people forget there was a lot of pressure on that Raptors team. And you had a guy in Kyle Lowry who basically built the foundation of that team. The new culture of the Raptors, he was the guy who built that team. He could have the cachet to when Kawhi came in to be, this is how we do it here, right? Right now, they look
to Fred.
They look to Fred,
Yeah.
but Fred.
But I think it's different.
But the thing is, Fred's a much different character than Fred.
I think
Kyle
you know
Lowry,
why. There's
excuse
two
me.
different reasons. It's because one being for Lowry, he put the team first. Freddie's putting himself first, and now you're seeing that discrepancy happening there on the court in the locker room.
The one thing I will say about Fred VanVleet,
I still think he cares about team, obviously.
yeah, of course. But I will say this: let me know if you guys.
But
agree.
it's about like if you care about the team, then you understand that you have to play a role within that team. And I think when you're playing hero ball like that, and obviously you're having problems with the younger guys on the team like Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent Jr. Like I think that's when you should be wise beyond your years in the locker room. And I don't know, just look at it in terms of the way that maybe Lowry looked at it beforehand, right? Like Lowry had to get on board with DeRozan being kicked off overnight, and he kept it. And we know he was not getting along with Masai for a while. He wasn't happy. But then the on-court production was still there. The locker room was still intact. He put everybody in their place, saying that this is our chance right now. Like this is our chance to do anything and do well, right? Well, the Raptors, they have their trade deadline approaching February 9th. Well, the whole league does, but it seems like the Raptors will be setting the standard for what's going to be happening this trade deadline. They have a bunch of players on the roster that pretty much everybody in the league wants, and we'll see who becomes available and who wants to keep showing off as the games continue. And we'll see you next time on Homestand NBA.